Jeffrey, how you doing?
Good, how are you?
Doing good. You excited?
I'm always excited. That's just a lie. But yeah, I'm excited.
Jeffrey Dean Morgan spent almost 15 years clawing for recognition in Hollywood. Then one day in 2005, right after his own manager dropped him and told him he'd simply aged out of the business, everything changed. What the manager didn't know was that 3 of television's biggest shows were about to call him, all within days of each other. However, there's an even stranger thing about his story. There's also a decade-long marriage that wasn't actually a marriage at all. So how does a kid who wanted nothing but a basketball scholarship end up as one of the biggest stars of Hollywood here? Let's get into it. A basketball kid. Jeffrey Dean Morgan was born on April 22, 1966, to Sandy Thomas and Richard Dean Morgan in Seattle. He grew up in the quiet suburb of Kirkland, Washington. It was the kind of place where kids built their identity on the sport they played. For Jeffrey, that identity was basketball. He grew up to be a tall 6'1" point guard and captain of his high school team. By the time he reached high school, his coaches, his family, and Morgan himself simply assumed basketball would define his future. He got into Skagit Valley College on a scholarship, and the future looked filled with iconic moments on the court. But all of those dreams came crashing down when a leg injury ended his career before it even started. Basketball was Morgan's entire life for as long as he could remember. There was no backup plan. For the first time in his life, the kid from Kirkland had no idea what came next. It was at that time that Morgan did something nobody around him expected. He started painting and selling his work at friends' rock shows and local bars. In his early 20s, he agreed to help a friend move from Seattle to Los Angeles. It was supposed to be a quick trip, a weekend, maybe a little longer. Instead, Morgan stayed. Acting was never part of the plan. He hadn't moved to LA chasing movie roles or spent years dreaming about Hollywood. But opportunities started appearing, and Morgan decided, why not give it a shot? I fell into acting, he would later say. Found out I had a little talent and pursued it. And just like that, the basketball player who had lost his entire identity found himself starting over in a completely different world. The manager who gave up. Through the 1990s and into the 2000s, Morgan worked constantly in Hollywood without a breakthrough. He landed guest spots on Walker, Texas Ranger, Star Trek, Enterprise, and many other shows. It was a steady, unglamorous stretch of roles that built a working actor's reputation without making him a household name. By his mid-30s, after 15 years of chasing the dream and finding no way forward, Morgan was ready to quit. His longtime manager, someone he considered a genuine friend, dropped him as a client and told him bluntly that he'd aged out and missed his window in the business. It was devastating, and it was the final straw for Morgan. He was about to pull the plug on his acting career once and for all, but Hollywood had other plans. The very next day, the phone started ringing. First came Supernatural, then Grey's Anatomy, then Weeds. Morgan has said the timing still amazes him. His manager gave up on him one day before his entire career turned around. And while all 3 shows gave Morgan a new level of exposure, it was Grey's Anatomy that changed everything. As heart patient Denny Duquette, Morgan became a fan favorite almost overnight. His slow-burn romance with Katherine Heigl's Izzy Stevens became one of the show's most memorable storylines. And when the writers eventually killed Denny off, fans had become so attached to him that the character continued returning in flashbacks and dream sequences. The momentum from Supernatural, Grey's Anatomy, and Weeds gave him the break he'd spent years fighting for. But turning that sudden success into a lasting career and building a stable personal life along the way would take a lot longer to figure out. Love, loss, and a blind date. Morgan's career kept moving in the right direction. He appeared opposite Rachel Weisz in a cameo in Fred Claus, played a memorable supporting role in the Office comedy Kablooey, and starred alongside Hilary Swank in the tearjerker P.S. I Love You, playing a character named William Gallagher. It was around that time that he got engaged to his Weeds co-star, Mary Louise Parker. The relationship made headlines, but the engagement didn't last. Within months, it was over, officially called off in April 2008. Morgan kept the details private and refused to feed the tabloids looking for a villain in the story. Even when his personal life was shaky, Morgan's acting career kept gaining momentum. In 2009, Zack Snyder cast him as Edward Blake, the comedian, in the long-awaited Watchmen adaptation. That same year, something else happened that would change his life. His Supernatural co-star Jensen Ackles and his wife Danielle set him up on a blind date with actress Hilary Burton. She was best known for playing Peyton Sawyer on One Tree Hill. Something clicked immediately, and their friends started planning a wedding before the couple even had a second date. But as it turned out, their path to marriage would not be so simple. The marriage that wasn't. On March 14, 2010, Morgan and Burton welcomed a son, Gus. On February 16, 2018, they welcomed a daughter, George Virginia, named after a favorite episode of a Western TV show they both loved. From the outside, their life together seemed straightforward. But here's the part that surprised almost everyone, including some of their closest friends. For years, the couple referred to each other publicly as husband and wife. It was so natural everyone assumed the papers were already signed. Headlines repeated it for years. Most fans and plenty of people close to them genuinely believed they'd married back around 2014. They hadn't. Despite spending nearly a decade together and raising 2 children, Morgan and Burton didn't legally marry until October 5, 2019. The ceremony was quiet and private, and fittingly, Jensen Ackles, the same friend who had helped set them up on that blind date years earlier, officiated the wedding. Burton later explained it simply. They'd already been living as husband and wife for a decade, so making it legal almost felt beside the point. By then, they had built an entire life together away from Hollywood. The couple had settled on a 100-acre working farm in Rhinebeck, in New York's Hudson Valley. And in 2014, Morgan and Burton, alongside Morgan's friend Paul Rudd, became co-owners of a local candy store called Samuel's Sweet Shop. The previous owner had passed away, and they couldn't stand the thought of watching the beloved local business disappear. But while that peaceful life was taking shape behind the scenes, Morgan was about to take on the role that would introduce him to an entirely new generation of fans: Negan and Everything After. On April 3, 2016, Morgan stepped into the season 6 finale of The Walking Dead as Negan, a leather-jacketed warlord who lined up the show's core characters and promised to kill one of them with a barbed wire bat named Lucille. The finale ended on that cliffhanger without revealing the victim. Fans wouldn't get the answer until the season 7 premiere that October, when Negan's arrival delivered one of the most controversial moments in the show's history. The scene was so brutal that it drove a real, measurable chunk of the audience away for good. Morgan later admitted that if he could rewrite one moment in the show's history, he'd undo that scene. Not because of the performance, but because of how much goodwill it cost. Over time, Negan became one of the most interesting characters in the show, evolving from villain to reluctant anti-hero across seasons 7 through 11. He appeared in 64 of the series' 177 total episodes. Of course, Morgan's time in the spotlight wasn't without controversy. In 2017, he faced backlash after wearing a Blue Lives Matter shirt. Morgan later explained that it had been a personal gift meant to honor a black mother whose police officer's son had been killed in the line of duty. Then, in 2022, he found himself in another public dispute when he defended his wife after she called a fellow actress a bigot online. But controversy never slowed his career down. Morgan returned as Negan in the Walking Dead spin-off Dead City, starting in 2023. In 2024, he joined Amazon's The Boys as Joe Kessler. He also lent his voice to the animated series Invincible. And in 2025, took an unexpected turn hosting the reality competition Destination X. Today, Morgan is still married to Burton, still raising Gus and George on that same Hudson Valley farm, and still co-running Samuel's Sweet Shop with Paul Rudd. His estimated net worth sits somewhere between $10 and $16 million. Built slowly over 3 decades of blockbuster roles, brand partnerships, and convention appearances. Jeffrey Dean Morgan never really had a plan for life. He just kept saying yes to whatever came next, and 35 years later, that instinct is still paying off. So, do you think history should remember Jeffrey Dean Morgan as the kid who lost his basketball dream, Denny Duquette, Nigon, or the guy quietly running a candy shop with Paul Rudd? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this video, make sure to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you never miss the next mystery we dig into. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.